at the 7 profit multipliers to build a business, and I will go through it fairly quickly because, as I say, this is something we spend more time on at the first seminar, but I do recap it as I said. And so any business has leads, or it's got to generate leads. It's got to generate interested parties to their product or service. However it does that, and there's a whole variety, it generates people who are interested. They then move through a conversion process to become customers, hopefully. So there are a number of customers. And in this typical business model, I'm taking some very simple figures so that the maths doesn't confuse anybody and you can sort of bear with me and see the results. So 100 leads a year, 30% conversion, 30 customers, an average of 2 sales a year to those customers. Now here's the first thing that often trips business owners up. They say, well, to some people I sell 10 times, to some people I sell once. I might only sell once every 3 years, so how does that work for me? Well, there is always an average. Wherever there's 2 numbers, there is always an average. And you could segment it. So if there's certain products or services that are 3 times a year and one that's only once every 5 years, you can segment your business. So many businesses, this might just be a one-off. So it's just one transaction and that's it. So let's put one in there. So that's where we go. So in this particular business, it's 2 a year, 60 sales, average transaction value, again, average, segment it and work averages out, giving you 6,000 gross revenue with a 50% profit margin, meaning 30% gross profit. For every customer, we're going to get 1 referral. Now that could be that they tell 10 people and we have a 10% conversion, or they tell 1 person who buys because they've been recommended. So we're adding another 3,000 through referrals, which gives us profits of 6,000. An average lifetime in this business, customers, clients, prospects, customers, clients saying 3 years, giving us a lifetime value of 18,000. Divide that by the number of customers, each customer is worth £600. And just this alone, I've been able to make a significant difference in a business. I was working with a gift shop in Shrewsbury, and it sold unique gifts and items. It sold everything from cards to pens to kites to juggling equipment. And it was one of those that, well, we sell lots of cards at £3 or £4, small presents, and then we sell things at £1,000 and plus. So we segmented it. But people used to walk into this shop and ask lots of questions of the staff about their unique gifts. And then they'd walk next door, this was the perception of the staff member I'm thinking of, they'd walk next door into a charity shop. And it was one of these cancer charity shops, which, funnily enough, used to stock the same things, normally with a 2 or 3 month lag time from the gift shop that I was working with. So they'd walk next door, and then they would buy it in the perception of the staff. So they used to resent that. There was a big resentment around that when I started working with them. And we did this exercise and worked out that when somebody bought, they tended to like what they bought. They came back 2 or 3 times for different cards, for different gifts, and they stayed 3 or 4 years. So they were worth, and I can't remember the figure now, but let's say £150 to the business. But their first purchase might have been £6 or £7. So when the staff member realised that, they saw people in a different light. Oh, they're worth £150 to the business, not £6, because that's what they were seeing them being worth. Then we looked at how many people does it take to come into the shop before somebody buys? And it was 1 in 3. So we then worked the figures back to give her the understanding that for every person who walked in, whether they bought or not, it was worth £50 to the business. Because even if the first and second didn't buy, the third one would buy, therefore it was going to be worth. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Sort of, and therefore celebrate when somebody comes into your shop and give them advice and be warm and encouraging and smiling, and even if they walk out, for the next person who walks in you can be equally nice and smiling and encouraging. And guess what? That transformed her sales. Because before then she was being cold and resentful of sharing any of the product knowledge. And guess what people were therefore doing? Going out and buying next door. Completely transforming them, understanding what not only a customer was worth to them, but a lead, somebody actually walking into the shop. So there's just a simple example of how some of these things can have transformational impacts. However, this is where the eat the elephant comes in. And if we add just 10% on each key. Because if you talk to somebody about growth and change, at 10% is reasonable enough, maybe stretch target, but reasonable enough to feel that it's in reach. So if we add 10% to each of these, 100 leads would become 110, 30% would become 33, and this is where the magic comes in. Not magic, it's accountancy stuff, isn't it? Oh, bread and butter to Tim there. It's now 33% of 110, not 33% of 100. So there is a compound effect as this rolls through. So in the mind of a business owner, you might say, well, if I add 10% to these, they think, well, that's 10% at the end of the day. But it isn't, because it adds all the way through, so that by the time you get down to the increase in profits, it's gone from 6,000 to 10,000. So if this was $500,000, or if this was 280,000, you've got another 50–60% growth on top of that. Similarly, if we add 3 years, we get a significant lifetime value increase and the value of each customer. So not only have we got more customers, we've increased the value from each one by 86%. To double the growth of your business, to double the turnover and profit, you just need to roll this out 2 years, twice, theoretically. So that's how you achieve it. Now, I then get many challenges when I present this in a generic, well, how does that work for my business? In this particular environment, that's the challenge for you to take away, because we're not working one-on-one. For example, an optician that I'm working with say, well, this doesn't affect us, we only sell glasses once every 2 years, or we only have eye appointments once every 2 or 3 years, they might even only buy once every 6 years. So they took that off. And they took this off because everybody stayed with them for life, or so they thought. And so we turned it into the 5 keys for that particular optician. And again, leads confused them because they've automatically got recalls going on, and they're also trying to get new patients in. So we brought that into 2 areas. This also confused them because for an optician, a referral is sending somebody to hospital. When I first presented this, they said, well, why should we be sending more people to hospital? We don't make any more money out of that. So we needed to change the terminology to recommendations. But this is the principle of setting about how to realise the goal. So before diving in and making changes to websites or changes to USPs or talking about benefits, it's all about setting in your mind the goal that you want. Now, another challenge is the small business owner, the one-man person or the one-person business. And what I say, or a new business, because a lot of this is about growth. This is where we have leads, or we have sales, and we want to increase them. If you're a brand new business, it's all about putting that stake in the ground. I want to generate 10 leads a month, 100 leads a month, 1,000 leads a month, however you want. And also, you define leads however you want. If it's visitors to a website, you're going to have thousands of leads and a very poor conversion rate. If it's people that have filled in a form on your website and you're starting to talk to them as leads, you're going to have far less leads, but hopefully a higher percent of conversion. So it's just about standardising the terminology in your particular business. And as well as having in the workbook the graph there, this one that you see, you've also got the sort of target setting, which is where you either take your current business and the target that you want to aspire to and the percentage increase that relates to, or you just write down there how many you want to go for. And I'm sure it's drilled in, setting goals and targets is significantly the way to achieve things. So if you set in trainers, a brand new business, I want 10 leads next month, and you do some activity and it doesn't bring in 10 leads, what do? Something else. You change the activity. If it brings in your 10 leads, you give yourself a pat on the back and you carry on working for 20 leads the next month, or whatever. So the key is activity around goal setting and targets.